Welcome to the Mentors and Moguls podcast. I'm your host, Heather Stone. I bring you mentors and moguls from all around the world, different walks of life, from creatives to CEOs to business leaders to top athletes and all kinds of other people in between. What if I told you that just by simply organizing your life, you could find an extra 2 to 3 hours a day to do anything that you like, maybe even create that new side hustle? Well, today my guest is Lisa Woodruff. Lisa is the founder and CEO of Organize365. She's a productivity and home organization expert, motivating and teaching busy women to take back their lives with functional systems that work. I'm so excited to share Lisa and her organization system with you. Welcome to the Mentors and Moguls podcast. I am thrilled to have my guest here today, Miss Lisa Woodruff. If you all are struggling with organization, and if you're like me, you lose so much time if you're not organized and prepared for things, I have got just the expert for you. Lisa Woodruff is the CEO of Organize365. She's going to tell us some tricks, some hacks, and how we can organize our life and stop sabotaging ourselves by being a mess. Welcome, Lisa.
Heather, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. We have so much to talk about today. Let's first to take you back. I want to share all of your great insights and all of your systems, and that's coming in just a minute. But can we just start at the top? You've got so much passion about organization. Where does that come from?
Yeah, so my passion about organization really came from childhood. I'm one of those born organized kids. I was always a busybody, but if you gave me a button box or a jigsaw puzzle or sent me to my room for timeout, I would reorganize my room, completely move all the furniture. By the time my mom said, "You can come out of your room," I'm like, "No, I'm good." I would just keep cleaning and organizing. So I was a naturally organized kid. That's where it originally started. That's not how I started the company, but originally, I was just an organized kid.
Okay. So you're already pre-wired. Your mom must have loved that, because I've had the opposite with my kids. So man, I don't even know what that would be like. So fantastic. So in your journey, how did you come upon creating Organize365? I know that you had to probably forge your own path. Did you start out with an organization company, then break it on your own, or how did you start?
Yeah. So being an organized kid, my mom was an artist. So she did love it that I was organized, because my Christmas gift to her was I would organize all of her art supplies. And she was able to maintain organization, but not create organization. So I knew as a child that what I did was different, but I didn't realize that you could learn the skill of organizing. I thought you either had it or you didn't. And then all of a sudden I didn't. So when we adopted our 2 kids at the end of my 20s, all of a sudden I was disorganized for about 6 months to a year. And then I got my organization back and I was like, "Ooh, good. I'm an organized person again." And then I got to the end of my 30s and I was 39, about to turn 40. And I was the most disorganized I had ever been. I had tried to get organized again and I couldn't. I was depressed. I was overweight. We were in a huge amount of debt. And I was just overwhelmed with life, and I was constantly living in a reactive and very negative life. And I was about to turn 40. I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I can't be, snapping at my kids and yelling at my husband and feeling so hopeless. I'm going to live to be 100. Like, I've got 60 more years. What am I going to do? So I quit my teaching job, because my husband and I were already taking days without pay anyway, because of all of our kids' needs. And I was like, you know what I need to do? I need to get this house in order. Like, until I get this house in order, I am never going to be able to move forward again. So I understood blogging. I had had a blog before. So I named my blog Organize365, because I knew that'd be good for SEO, search engine optimization. I had no idea how I would monetize it. I knew I wanted to create some kind of business I could do from home. And I worked in a direct sales company, and I just started blogging about organization. And like you said, about 3 months later, I found out I was an in-home professional organizer. And I actually had been paid to organize people, but I didn't realize that was a thing. So for the next 3 years, I did that service work of in-home organizing and blogging to start the company.
Okay. So this is so important, what you just said, because I don't know how many women that I talk to every single day that say, I got the rug pulled out from underneath me. I don't like my job anymore, or COVID has just really thrown me off the rails as far as what am I going to do for income? I like being at home, but it's not enough. So you just basically laid out a formula to say, I took action, I leaned into my strengths, and I made something happen. I didn't know where it would go. So bravo to you for that.
Thanks. And I do think that's true. Like if you look at any business that's been in business 5, 10, 15, 20 years, if you go all the way back to the beginning, it almost always started as a trading time for money, a one-on-one consultancy, service-based big business. And then they figured out how to get that to a broader audience. And the same is true for Organize365.
All right. So let's talk about the payoff. How did you feel? We know how you felt. You said you were depressed, overweight, snapping with your kids. Obviously, you weren't really happy with the whole picture of your life in the home or wherever it was going, the trajectory. How did you feel 2, 3 years later or a year later when you got things organized? What was that like?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I am such an analytical person. I'm always analyzing where I'm going and where I've been. So I've thought a lot about this. And that first 3 years in business, there were a lot of limiting beliefs that I overcame. One was that I was worth more than like $15 an hour. So as a professional organizer, I started my rate. Well, actually, I'd been cleaning houses before that, and I charged $30 for that. So I knew I had to charge more than $30. So I started at 40. And then year number 2, I charged $50 and brought on some team members. And by the time I stopped organizing 5 years later, I was charging $75 an hour, and I wasn't even organizing the homes. Like I was going in and saying 2 organizers for $150 an hour, but I wasn't one of the 2 organizers. I was just booking the jobs. That was huge. Like to really recognize that I, as a female, was able to earn more than my teaching salary from home and not actually physically doing the work. So along the way in there, I had a really big breakthrough. I'm actually a 4th generation female college graduate. My mom, my grandma, my great grandmother all went to college, which is like almost unheard of. But also, they all were entrepreneurs. Like my great grandmother owned a floral shop, and she owned her own gift store, and she owned a restaurant, and my grandmother had a business, and my mom had a business. And I was like, why, if all these women own their businesses, do I feel like I have to keep my business so small? And I realized it was because all of their spouses also owned businesses that were bigger than theirs. And my husband does not own a business. He has had the same job since the day he graduated from college. He's really locked in his salary. And so I capped my own earning to under his because I was afraid if I earned more, he would divorce me.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so my friend was like, why don't you ask him? And so I sat on the back porch. I remember I'd been in business like 5 years. And I was like, so anyway, I could grow this business a little bit bigger and I can make a little bit more money. He's like, look around you. Do you see the debt? Do you see our kids' needs? Like, if you can make more money, make more money. And then I started to, and I won't say it's been like, he does say, he's like, I'm jealous. Like you get to travel and you get to do all these things that you're uniquely created to do. And I don't really like my job and you make more money than I do now. And he says, but is a huge limiting belief for me and him. And I'm a very traditional person. You know, I loved being a stay-at-home mom. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but now I'm 50 and I want to be a mogul. So I'm like, and now I want to, conquer the world. It's still as hard for me with my mindset of a woman to say that.
I'm so proud of you. And yeah, I think if I went to my husband and I said, by the way, I have potential to make more money than you, do you mind? I think he would say, by all means, let me open the door. Right. So
Get it going.
Sure. Why not? That's an amazing, I don't think I've ever had anyone tell me that before. I'm kind of speechless at that. That's pretty amazing.
I think more of us think that than we articulate it.
Probably. Well, I'm glad that you blew past that. So, okay. Signal to all women that are listening right now. If that's what you're thinking, that's your problem. You can make more money. Hello. Just rang the bell. Get out there and go after it. All right. So Organize365. Do you have some systems in place? What do you do when you walk into someone's house? Do you organize their house? You take it as far as I'm going to organize your life. I'm going to tell you how to organize your day, your company daily structure. What are the boundaries of what you offer?
Okay, so I don't do any in-home organizing anymore at all. We haven't for the last 5 years. Okay. And every time when I tell people what my business is, they're like, yes, I need you to come over. I'm like, yeah, sorry, you have to listen to the podcast to get the course. And I teach you. I'm a teacher. So that's what I have a college degree in teaching. I could teach you the skill of getting organized and you do the work. And they're like, oh. And then like half an hour later, they come back, they go, okay, so how do you teach the skill of organizing? It's kind of like, I just want to have somebody do it for me, but it's so much better when you actually learn how to do it for yourself, because organization isn't about what it looks like in the end. It's about, like you said, being able to find things and knowing where everything goes. It's not how it looks, it's how it functions and how you feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are some of can you give me like the top 3 tips on what
Yep.
people really, it's a misnomer. What do people think organization is, or how
Mhm.
hard it is, and how easy is it to actually implement some of the skills that you teach?
Yeah. So the first thing I think is that people don't realize how much time housework takes.
Mhm.
So, according to the Pew Research Institute, without children, housework takes anywhere from 24 to 36 hours a week. I thought they were wrong. So, I did a time study and it took Greg and I 36 hours. I was like, darn it. You don't realize how long it takes to clean your house, do the laundry, do the meal prep, do the maintenance, do the organizing, pay the bills. Like it takes a lot of time. So, we underestimate that we have any job whatsoever. But
Mm.
once you realize that you have a job, then you're like, okay, well, if I have a job, then how can I reduce it, eliminate it, task stack it so I could get it done in less time? The second thing is when you look to get organized, you think that there are two things that you do. You either increase productivity or you declutter. So you take black trash bags and you throw away everything you possibly can in a weekend and you feel lighter and you're like, yes, I'm organized. And then a couple weeks later, you're like, I just don't feel organized. So you grab a black trash bag again and you throw away more things. And the problem is decluttering gets you started, but then you need to organize. And if you keep going back to that decluttering to get that initial high, you end up decluttering things you actually need because you're not moving on to the next step, which is organizing. You skip organizing entirely and you go over to decorating and increasing productivity. And you go buy bins and you label them all and you put everything that's left in these bins so it looks beautiful, but you can't find anything because that's not actually how you use the space. And so that middle pie between decluttering and making it digital, making it pretty, making it functional is organizing. And organizing is the skill of looking at what you have and reorganizing it or putting it where you need in the house, but also buying things, buying specific organizers for whatever you're organizing, buying more clothes. That was my problem in organizing my closet. Not that it wasn't organized because it wasn't color coded, but because I didn't have enough clothes that fit. So I wouldn't get rid of anything because I only had 3 outfits that fit. And I couldn't accept the fact that I didn't have any clothes and I didn't have any money to buy clothes. People don't talk about that part. So that act of organizing, that is the skill you need to learn to have just the right amount of stuff for you. And then the last one is that you could be a minimalist or you can be a maximalist. It doesn't matter. Like it's not the amount of stuff you have, it's that it's the right amount of stuff for you.
Okay, so can you expand on that? The right amount of stuff for you. How do you know when it's the right amount of stuff for you?
Yes. So there's this great book, Generations. And then there's also this book, Pendulum by Neil Strauss and William Howe. And they talk about how there's this 80-year cycle of everything. And this pendulum keeps swinging back and forth. So if you think of maximalism, you think of the 80s. I mean, that is the height of maximalism, yuppies, BMWs, all that stuff. And then if you think of the height of 2020, that was the height of minimalism. And I knew that because I had been researching this. I was like, okay, well, if that's the height of minimalism, I don't see how we're ever going to start being maximalist again and having more stuff in our house. And then the pandemic happened and there was no toilet paper. I was like, oh, that's it. That's it. Like no one will ever have 2 rolls of toilet paper for the rest of their life. You will always have a 24 pack minimum. Just like when you go all the way back to the Great Depression, your grandparents saved tinfoil their entire lives because they lived through the Great Depression. You will hoard toilet paper your entire life because you lived through the pandemic. And it's those life experiences that change us from living minimalistic to maximalistic. So we'll go all the way to the other end again. And we will be like the 80s in the 60s because we'll get all the way to maximalism. But you personally, you may like to have, just the right amount of stuff and no extras. You like to have a very minimalistic life so that you have more time to do other things. Or you may be very eclectic and you love to collect things and you like antiques and you like, all the different colors. That doesn't matter. That's not what organization is. That is decorating and your personal preference for living, not can you find what you have. If you can find what you have, you're organized.
So if you've got a lot of clutter around, I think you spend so much time digging through and finding things. Where did I put this? Where did I put that?
Yeah.
You can burn through half a day just finding one thing
Yeah.
that you needed for 5 minutes. Really, I've done it before.
Yeah.
And I'm an organizational freak. There are days though through the pandemic where, I donned a pair of sweatpants for a few days in a row, like everyone else. But when I'm not organized, I'm grumpy. I'm stressed out because I'm always late for something because, what used to take 5 minutes to find took 45 minutes to find. And yeah, it just has that ripple effect. I never really thought of it, but it really does have that ripple effect on everything. And then when it comes to business, do you speak to people about organization with their business as well?
I do, but it is so easy to get into the business realm of organization because literally that's where all the money is. So I have told myself, no, we're staying in the home because no one else is focusing on the home like they focus on organization, the business. So my Sunday basket for home does have a counterpart that is the work box for work. And it is different. People will organize their work or they will organize their home. But once you organize both, then you have a superpower because if you know where everything is at home, and you know where all your projects are at work, then you really can go really far, really fast because organization is all about time. Mm-hmm. You said it, like, if you can't find something, you spend the time. Like you are spending the time either way, either in looking for things because you're disorganized or in proactively organizing your house. The only difference is when you proactively organize, it's a current investment of time for an exponential future return on time. But if you choose not to organize, you're going to spend the same time constantly looking for things all day long. Do you see what I'm saying? Like you need to stop time and say, all right, I'm going to do 5 hours a week for 6 months and get everything all the way organized. And then all of a sudden you'll have that 5 hours you spent organizing back, plus the 5 hours you spent looking for things, 10 hours a week, every week, like until you hit your next major life event, which is usually 10 to 15 years away.
Which is the number one complaint everyone has is I don't have enough time for X. I'd work out if I had more time. I'd spend more time with my kids, reading them stories at night if I had more time, or helping them with homework or what, volunteer somewhere, whatever it is. Everything comes down to time. So you're actually giving them a big gift. Now, in there somewhere, I think I heard I have the ability and capability of maximizing or doubling my income if I would go into the workspace. I'm just letting you know that if you need a push or a nudge to make even more money than was seen before, that I fully support that for you. I'd love to see you get as big as you can, bring in some extra help and get as big as you can.
Thank you.
You're the gal for good, right?
Yeah. And you know what we have uniquely found in our workbox? So we have the Sunday basket, which organizes your kitchen counter and your actionable to-dos and gets everything out of your mind on paper in a box, and you go through it. After doing that for 6 weeks, you have 5 extra hours every week. Now, it's not like 5 hours where you're like laying around watching Netflix. You use that in something else. But our mission is to help busy women get their home and paper organized so that they can do what they're uniquely created to do. And we have so many people in our community who are using the Sunday basket and got their home organized, and they literally have 12, 15 hours a week. They're writing books, starting foundations, starting companies, going back and getting their degrees. It is so exciting to see. And then the Friday workbox works perfectly for entrepreneurs to be able to visually see what they're doing. And then when they hire on a team, it is a real tactile way for them to train and outsource their tasks physically versus trying to do it all digitally.
Excellent. So you've got layers and layers of time savers. Yeah. And yes, that's what I was thinking. If someone could start their side hustle with those 5 extra hours a week. Oh, start a blog, start a company, start something. Yes. Or just, cake decorating. You've always wanted to do that. So you never know.
Yeah. We define work as whatever you spend your Monday through Friday doing. It doesn't have to be income generating. So if you want to homeschool your kids or travel across the country or learn a craft or go back to school, being proactive, not reactive is one of our core values. And you cannot be proactive if you aren't organized because you're always reacting to life.
So I heard you mention 6 weeks. So do you think someone can actually go from being a really unorganized person to having their act together and really kind of tying things up a lot tighter at home in 6 weeks? Do you think, is that a good test time frame to go from a mess to motivated or something like that?
Yes. And yes, and organization is a learnable skill. 87% of people in our study believe that organization is a learnable skill. I am a teacher and I will teach you to be organized. Not everyone can learn in 6 weeks. No one can really learn the entire skill of organizing in 6 weeks. It's like learning a foreign language. But can you understand the alphabet and start to make words and start to read a sentence in 6 weeks? Absolutely. And what happens is you learn that it is learnable and you are capable of learning it. And you get a quick win with the Sunday basket because literally it works for everyone. I was a preschool teacher and a Montessori teacher. So every single learning style, ADHD, we have so many people in our community who are diagnosed with ADHD because we externalize executive function. And that's where all of your organization comes from. being able to task stack what you need to do, being able to retrieve the information when you need it, being able to prioritize what you have to do in a certain order. Those are all executive function skills. And the Sunday basket teaches you how to do all of those. Once you stop using your brain as a to-do list holder and start writing down everything your brain is telling you to do and your DMs and your kids and all these people are telling you to do on paper, and looking at that once a week and purposely prioritizing what you're going to do for 6 weeks straight, all of a sudden what you get back is your brain. And your brain stops telling you to pick up milk and get a haircut and starts to say, you know what? If you move this shelf in your warehouse over there, you would save 50% of your shipping time. And you're like, oh, that is something that your brain can never tell you if you're trying to remember to pick up the dog after work instead of just having that as a reminder on your phone.
Well, that's a really good point. So you're decluttering your mind and you're making way for new, more futuristic, productive, visionary kind of thinking coming in rather than bogging it down with daily tasks.
Yes.
Okay. I love that. So in your community, what is your general age range? Who is it? Mostly women? Is it women and men? Is it young people, working moms? Who is your audience there?
So mostly currently it is women in their early 20s to their late 60s. And it is all women. It is anyone who has decided I have had enough. I cannot live this way any longer. And they usually start listening to the podcast first. And then their mindset changes from organization is something perfect I'm trying to do to I am a woman of excellence and I am worth understanding and learning the skill of organizing. Just because I'm not perfect right now doesn't mean that I have a negative, that I can accept the grace that Lisa's giving me and that I can learn the skill. But in the studies that we did, the surveys that we did, and now that I'm speaking corporate America, men are so hungry for tactical, practical ways to get organized because almost every solution out there is digital or it's focused on the home for a woman that's like a Pinterest project. And there aren't these real physical ways of getting organized. Millennial men are the most interested in the Sunday basket and binder solution in the surveys that we did.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. Can you walk me through an example of what they would be most interested in within that basket?
Yeah. So the Sunday basket and doing the general kitchen counter, it's how do you remember what to do when? And how do you have a place that you go to once a week? But they're even more interested in the binders. I think it was 62% of millennial men were interested in binders versus a filing cabinet. So nobody knows how to use a filing cabinet unless you were trained as a secretary 50 years ago. And so we don't know what to do with files. We just make more files. We have files that have the same thing in it with different names. Like we just don't know what to do with it. And the problem with the filing cabinet is I was teaching people how to rainbow organize a filing cabinet that looked so cute. It was like an art project. And then the California fires and the hurricanes in Houston happened. And I had clients reach out to me and they're like, we have to evacuate because of the hurricane. We're going up into the attic or we're leaving because of the fires. What do I do with my paper? And I was like, you just have to leave. You can't take a filing cabinet with you. So I was like, okay, when do you use paper? You use it when you're settling an estate, at the lawyer, you use it at the doctor's office, you use it at the school to advocate for your kid's IEP. You never use it in your basement. So I decided that nobody can get their mind around files and how many files and what kind of files. I was like, forget it. We're not doing files at all. We're going to do binders. You only need 4: medical, financial, the stuff related to your house, and the stuff related to how you run your family. That's it. Everything goes in these 4 binders. Everything else you can get rid of. 85% of what's in there you get rid of. And millennial men were like, I can get behind that. That sounds like a plan that would work for me.
Very true. As someone who's had to evacuate many times due to hurricane, I know exactly what that's like. And you've got to have this small condensed box saying, if there's one thing I can grab with all my essentials in it, that's it. The rest is just forget it.
Can't And we just literally got an email yesterday. The California fires are starting up again, and they got in the car with their Sunday basket binders, pets, kids, and left. Yeah. It's heartbreaking, but it's reality. Like the unexpected is unexpected, but life events are going to happen.
Definitely going to happen. Well, not only that is that we don't, this is a digital age. I come from the tech world where we say, get rid of everything you have on paper and digitize it. Everything's got to live in the cloud. So your filing cabinet can't live in the cloud unless you put it there to begin with. So it's just the way things are now.
And I'd love to address that because people always say, I'm not going to make a binder. I'm just going to make it digital. And my only caution to you against that is I love the 4 binders for these reasons. One, this paper is constantly changing. And usually when you have a digital system, unless you're really good, but usually when you have a digital system, you need to share it with at least one more person, which means they need to keep it updated and they need to get the password. And whenever I have personally needed paper, it's been with the lawyer in their office, it's been with the doctor in the office, it's been with the school. And I've been at school meetings where I have verbally told them information that I know that I will digitally send them later. And they go, yeah, this mom, meh, 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 meh. And I've been in meetings where I go, oh, okay. And I flip the binder. First of all, they have no idea what's in your binder. It scares the bejesus out of them. And I get out the papers and I go, this is the last one. And this is the current one. And they look at it and they go, oh my gosh, how did this happen? Did she hit her head? Like, there's no way. We've never seen this before. Have you seen this? And the tone in the room totally changes to how do we advocate and help this mom and this child from this mom is just paper is so powerful. When COVID happened, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to give back. So we just took half of our medical binder and we put it online for free. And we're like, download this and put your medical history into it because that's what you need if you're going to need to go to the emergency room. Right. The next day, they stopped letting you take an advocate into the emergency room with you. You had to go in by yourself. We had our community already sending their loved ones into the emergency room with the packets of paper. And the medical community was like, thank goodness, because your stuff is not medically, it's not digitally in there. And doctors and nurses can immediately take action when they have the information. But if you don't have an advocate with you and they don't have your digital records, like they're guessing and they're trying and they're doing the best they can and you can't breathe. And it's not a good situation for anyone. Paper just, it takes the emotion out and it just brings you the facts and lets you take action.
Well, that's a really good point. That's a very good point. So where do you go next? What's next on the growth? Where are you focusing on now? Because I know there's probably layers and layers and layers of organization going on in your mind right now.
Yeah, I just love having conversations about how organization. So our latest research, the title is Organization is Not an Optional Hobby for Women. So we've been doing academic research in the last year. We did a study on the definition of housework and the weight of paper. And what we found out were men were just as interested in organizing as women. I thought it was just women. I said, okay, that's interesting. Then let's figure out, what does home organization look like? No one's defined that, just like no one had defined housework. And I was like, all right, so this is organization. And I had our PhD research the academic articles that had already been written. And she's like, oh yeah. So there've been multiple articles written about home organization. And they all say it's an optional hobby undertaken by women. I'm like, what? Like, it's essential. It's how and where you get time from. Like, and I was like, so organization is not an optional hobby for women is the title of our next study. And we've defined what home organization is, how you get it. 87% of people believe that organization is a learnable skill. But when we divided it into the 4 categories of personal, family, storage, and paper organization, the highest category people said they had done was storage organization, and it was 18%. So we think it's learnable, but none of us have it. So I have a lot of work to do.
Well, okay. There's a big demand out there. So in one of my previous lives, I've always invested in real estate. That's one of my strong suits is real estate has always been good to me. And I just know how to pick them. And I do a lot with the houses and buildings. And then I sell them eventually. It's always been great. One of my biggest pet peeves is walking into someone's home when they want to sell it. And there's clutter and garbage everywhere. And they think it looks fabulous. And I'm thinking, first of all, so in this climate, everybody is selling everything right now. I realize it's a little easier to sell, but with interest rates going up, they're going to have to start making an effort to clean their house up and do that. But decluttering your home to sell it, decluttering your home can make the difference between an extra 100,000 or an extra $500,000 or more, depending on, the home that you have. And people just, it's surprising to me they don't get it. And I said, would you rather have 200,000 more, or do you want to stay like this? Because this is really making a difference if you spent 8 hours fixing this situation. So do you have people coming to you to help for that reason?
Yes, I did the research early on when I was doing in-home professional organizing. And there was some study out there that showed that it was like a 600% return on whatever money you spent on decluttering and organizing. So like if you spent $1,000 on having a junk service come, you would make $6,000 or $7,000 more in the sale of your house. That was some study that was done. Yeah, it's totally. and painting everything one color. Like, you don't want to put any more money into the house because you're leaving, which is why I did what my dad said, which he said, as soon as you move into your house, there's anything you want to change it as soon as you can financially afford to do it so that you can enjoy it, because you're going to do it before you move anyway. You're going to recarpet, you're going to repaint, you're going to, upgrade the fixtures and all that stuff. So if you want to do it as soon as you can afford it, because you're going to do it before you move anyway, if you want to get the money out of your house.
That's exactly right. So 2 weeks ago, I won't say where I was, but I was somewhere and I saw a very pricey, they had to check me out before I can walk in the house. I was looking for an investment. So it was a very high dollar house. I walked into the house in the first 10 minutes. I couldn't take it. And it was probably one of the most beautiful pieces of property, the most beautiful settings I'd seen in a long time. And the house somehow, I guess they'd already taken away one truckload of clutter. The house was so cluttered that they wonder why they're the only house in this market that they've had no offers on. And we're talking, it's a primo piece of real estate.
Mm-hmm.
I hope everybody listening gets this, that if you want money, if you want 5 years of a pay raise, declutter your house before you sell it, people.
Pack it up to move it. And move it into storage. Like, if you don't want to get rid of it, don't get rid of it, but get it out of the house so that it looks bigger.
That's right. That's 100% right. Well, I'm so excited. I know you have great courses, great classes. Where can people find your podcast so they too can take your classes and learn how to declutter their life and actually be more efficient, more productive, and of course, happier, like you said?
Thanks, Heather. So my podcast is Organize365. I've been podcasting for 7.5 years. So there's a lot of podcasts over there. So I've recently started playlists. So wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find the regular Organize365 podcast, or you can find a topic specific playlist. We have one for just our research. We have one for the terms that I've defined. We have one for businesses if you do want to look into that Friday workbox.
How about for college students?
Oh, we have something for them too.
Oh, good.
And it's called the Launching Life Skills Binder and Course. And it teaches you all the #adulting things that you need. And we have a lot of universities looking to put it in as a freshman seminar.
Fantastic. Well, I'll talk to you offline about that one. That's fantastic. Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you and giving us a little brief peek into what you do. And thank you so much for sharing with our audience. And I can't wait to talk to you in a few months and see what you're up to next.
Thanks, Heather.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Mentors and Moguls podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, rate and review this interview and share it with a friend who could benefit from today's guest.
You can find bonus video episodes at mentorsandmogulspodcast.com or check out our events page and our blog at heatherrstone.com. Until next time, make it a great day.